the show where we crack the code on peak performance. Today, we're unpacking a question that's haunted high achievers for years. How do elite athletes consistently outperform the competition? And what if their secrets could be revolutionized in your life? We've all been told to stay positive or never quit. But what if those mantras are holding you back? What if the real playbook for success isn't about hustle culture or rigid discipline or embracing stress, quitting strategically, and hacking your brain like a pro? Together, we'll reveal why leaning into chaos, yes, chaos, builds unstoppable resilience, how to pre solve your biggest obstacles before they derail your goals, and why people like Serena Williams, Tom Brady, or even Elon Musk, regardless of how you feel about them, all swear by strategic quitting. Whether you're scaling a business, raising a family, or chasing your personal best, this episode isn't just about success. It's about rewriting the rules of what's possible. Stick around because by the end, you'll have 5 science backed strategies to outthink pressure, outwork burnout, and outperform anyone, including yourself. So, are you ready to play at an elite level? If so, let's get started. Of course, man. We like to start off with kind of mind probing questions and things of that nature. And I don't really want to get into the conversation about playing at an elite level unless we kind of define what is elite. So, when you hear the term elite, the consistency coach, the Uncle Junior himself, what does elite mean to you?
Oh, elite means that your performance or whatever you're doing is in the top percent. I don't know what that percent is, right? We're looking at the top of the sphere or the top of the spear, right? Who's up there? Is it
Hmm.
the top five, the top 10, the top 6%, the top 3%? So I'm thinking somewhere the people that are probably in the top 10 to 15% range in whatever category of it may be. Whether you're talking about finances, they're the top, they're the elite people when it comes to finances.
Hmm.
If you're one of the top 10% in the 100-meter dash, I would consider you elite. But the thing about it is, I don't know where that number is.
Yeah.
But I do say that it definitely is those people who perform at a high level at the tip of the spear, the tip of the
Yeah.
spear. But I don't know what percentage that is. Because you say 3%, it knock a lot of people out.
It does.
If you say 10%, it's like, well, it's a lot of people in the 10% range, like me. I did a marathon. I am in the 1%. So as far as I'm not a runner, but
Hmm.
as far as someone who has completed a marathon, I am an elite runner when it comes to a marathon, but I'm not a elite runner. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I accomplished something that was elite,
Right.
but I'm not an elite runner. So I don't know, man. Very short answer to sum it all up. Tip of the spear.
Tip of the sphere. I like him.
Hmm.
And if I can, I want to kind of add clarity to what you were saying about the marathon, because out of the entire population, only 1% of people actually run marathons. But
Hmm.
what he is saying is that he isn't in the elite when it comes down to marathon runners. So
Mm-mm.
and I love that transparency because I like that level of honesty. We got to be honest with ourselves. So I think you never get to be elite if you're not number one honest with self. But this is the thing I want to kind of put out there because I know I mentioned people like Tom Brady and Serena Williams and things
Yeah.
of that nature. And I want to kind of stick it to there. I'm
Elon Musk, you mentioned him.
yeah,
That's elite.
that's elite as far as finances are concerned. Absolutely. Um, but I kind of want to stick with these names just for a second, not carrying them
Hmm.
through the entire show, because I believe in their minds. Well, let me back up. The term elite, I don't care what definition you look up, it will have the word superior in it. And when I hear the word superior, it reminds me of my military days because one of the things that we want to do as armed forces is, as the armed forces, is have what they call air superiority. Well, air superiority means, in essence, in layman's terms, we own the sky. And if we own the sky, we can use the sky to our advantage, which in turn should give us a high probability of success. So somebody, if they're listening, they kind of hear where I'm going with this. So when I hear the term elite, I think superior, but what am I superior in relation to? Because I love what you were doing. You say it's in the top 3%. You say only 1% of people run marathons. I may not necessarily be in the 1% of the 1%, but I'm at least in the 1%, right? But I think before you get to the 1% and then the 1% of the 1%, that 1% that you're looking to obtain is the 1% in me that wants to be a part of the 1%. So when we start talking elite, I don't want to compare myself to no one outside of me yet. I want to compare myself to myself because I need to pull out that thing that is elite and it drives me to perform to such a degree of superiority. Now, I know I might be rambling at this point, but am I making sense? No? Do I need to keep
No,
on?
you making sense. No, I
Okay.
got you.
Because I think some of the struggle is we seek to do the comparison first, but we don't necessarily do the right comparison. Because, and I'm going back to something you said back when you marathon, you said, my future self, you said I had to resolve, and I'm getting it wrong, so please forgive me. You said I had to resolve in my mind what is good for my future self and leave my past self behind. So you focus more on your future self, which was all about completing this race, to where your past self was like, hey, you don't have your headphones. Like, this is going to be a very difficult race. You ain't tired
Mhm.
yet? I'm hungry. Like, all of these different distractions that are pulling you away from achieving that 1%. And I think until we do that, until we search self, stop comparing ourselves initially, search self to pull out that one that elitism that exists in you to bring to the forefront that demands peak performance out of you at that point. Now you can do the comparison. Because if I do the comparison then after doing what I just talked about, now I can see how am I stacking up against these people. And if I do it at that point, now it gives me a different metric to shoot for. Oh, well, they're running sub 20 minutes. And I'm sorry, correction, sub 2 hours. They're running sub 2 hours. Well, I'm at two, and I'm not trying to remember your time ideally, but I think like 2:20 something.
For a marathon?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was over 4 hours.
Okay,
I
4 hours.
think I was right around 5 hours. But
So a
like
good
4 is like if you under 4, you're good. 4 is like anybody who decide, "Hey, Imma do a marathon," is to complete one, but if you get to, like, the 4 hour, that's, like, the mark, but if you looking to be elite, they ain't out there for 4 hours
right. So
at
there you
all.
go. There you go. My marathon ignorance. Y'all can tell I ain't part of the 1%.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
but but that's the key. So now that gives me something to shoot for. Shoot for 4. Once I achieve 4, I shoot for sub 4. And how much of a sub 4 can I attain? Because now not only am I performing at an elite level within myself, but now when I do the comparison, I am now performing at an elite level with them. So that's kind of like how I view elite when it comes down to this notion, because I think we've all seen it in the Tom Brady's. I mean, this dude won 6 Super Bowls. Like, think about it. I think the most prior to him were 4, and we can't say it was just the team, the system. No, he went to another team and won it there as well. So you can't take that away from him. Like, he won, like, of course the team participated. I'm not taking away from anybody on the team, but he was the quarterback for those teams that won the Super Bowl. And I think that's a huge that is a huge mark, or like a very high standard that he set for himself in order to be able to do that. Let me pause right there, bro, because I've been going on and on and on, and I'm just curious to get your feedback at this point.
No, I think the only thing that I wanted to add in there is that I think the people have to be careful of, um, not putting making sure that they're actually doing something. I don't want people to I think what happens sometimes people get comfortable and they think that they're doing a lot more than what they really are,
Hmm.
right? So getting better, becoming elite is you have to have some way of measuring, right? So if at year 1 you set out to run a marathon or to run a half marathon or something, then you did it. and then you get your time gets faster and faster and faster and faster, right? Like that way you can show you're being elite. But if I guess what I'm saying is you have to have some way to compare it to. You have to have some sort of data to bounce it back off of so you don't get comfortable thinking that you're doing a lot more than what you really are and then only to become disappointed. Because I see that a lot of times when it comes to effort. Effort, that's
Hmm.
the word I want to use because see a lot of times people will they will work out, but they will go and they will walk around the block, right? And they're back and they will, I walk the dog and they're back in 5 minutes. And they say, yeah, I walked the dog today. But there's nothing wrong with it, but there wasn't a lot of effort that was
Right.
put into it. So you're not seeing a lot of results. But in your mind, you're thinking that you're being elite or that you're really that you're really doing something. And however, the level of what you're doing at is not enough that's going to really yield any type of result. So I think it is a good thing to, you know, to want to be elite and want to get better, but to not just be comfortable. Just make sure that you're being elite.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
I got you. I got you.
yeah.
I want to kind of bring the first one, the first point,
The
and
first one.
remember the goal here is 5 science-backed strategies to master work, stress, and goals. So make sure that you stay through all the way to the end so you can get all 5 strategies. So the first one is anti-fragility training, how to thrive under pressure. And so elite athletes don't avoid stress, they invite it. By simulating chaos like loud crowd noises or something like that during practice, they train their brains to thrive in uncertainty. In life, this mirrors stress inoculation for careers, relationships, and crisis. So, this kind of combines the notion of stress inoculation plus cognitive flexibility. So, what I want to ask you, my friend, is where in your life, and I know you have several examples of this, and you can by all means use the marathon, whichever one you want to use. Where in your life could you add control stress to build resiliency, or where have you? Either or.
Either one. I want to go with fitness. Part of me want to go with my mind, but I think I'm gonna go with the fitness. All right. So one way that you can add control stress in your life to build resistance is by simply doing something physically hard or challenging on a consistent basis. If you get up not if you get up, but if you say, "You know what? I am going to walk every single day at a time that I do not want to do it," right? It's easy to do it when the sun up. You done had your coffee or your orange juice and your baguette and your butter, right? It's cool. You know, it's a day off. It's nice out. The sun's out. The birds are chirping. It's a nice 8 o'clock in the morning, cool, brisk day for a walk. It's easy to do that, right? There's no stress. It's not going to build a lot of resilience, right? Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go out there when it's dark and you got a flashlight on your head or in your hand and it's 30, 31 to 32 degrees, right? Just at, just at freezing, right? And go out there and walk for an hour, right? Once you do that, you're going to add stress to yourself because especially if you don't want to do it, right? But what's going to happen is once you get done and after you've done it for some time over and over and over again, you've developed a certain level of resilience to not just that but doing other hard things, right? When you're used to doing hard things, when hard things come up, they're not as hard, right? So when you're used to doing hard stuff and you get to work and somebody say something to you like, I ain't right worried about this. You realize like my mom used to cuss me out for fun. You know what I mean? So you saying something to me at work ain't nothing for me. You know, I'm not Charlotte Jordan. My mom ain't never cussed me out. Charlene, you ain't never cussed me out. Say that here right now. So but yeah, man, that's kind of my thoughts on it. You know, if you do something hard and stressful on a daily basis, that when these stressors come, you're not as stressed out as much. Like working out actually helps relieve and eliminate stress.
Yeah,
It's one of the best stress eliminators that you can do.
absolutely. I think, and for me, um, I want to say it like this: whatever it is you're trying to get better at doing, adding stress to that gets you to the point that you can actually do it better. And the example that was given earlier was like practicing for a football game, but cranking up the crowd noise in the stadium during practice to simulate the crowd noise during the actual game. So, whatever it is that you want to do, add stress to it. That way, now when it comes down to doing a thing, you'll find that you're operating at a high level. So, what does that mean? Try to remove the thing that makes it easier for you to do what you're doing. That adds stress to it. Case in point, I got it. We live in a world to where AI is the thing. Well, if you want to write, don't use AI and try freehanding, right? Write something without using AI and formulate the thoughts behind doing it. If you want to become a better speaker, start writing. Like do those things because the more and I'm not saying this is not me saying AI is bad, y'all. I want to make sure I say that. But the more I lean on AI, the easier it is for me to do the thing that I'm trying to do. Then when I get this book published and out to the world and they say, hey, Coach Martin or Coach Dwyer, we want you guys to come and speak at our event and we want you guys to talk about this book. Well, where did I get the detailed information from the book? AI. So now I have to talk about this thing that AI helped me write when at the end of the day, if I do a majority of the writing, I am speaking from the source in which that information came. This is also another thing you'll hear me say. I don't shy away from difficult conversations. Why? Because difficult conversations make you more of a conversationalist. It makes you think in the midst of the conversation that you're having. So, stress in the direction of the thing that you're trying to do helps build the resiliency. Again, it has to be controlled stress, though. It helps build the resiliency that you needed to continue to do it even when the circumstances change. What if the electricity go out? Do my book go on hold now because I don't have power and this is the time that I have set aside to write? No, write anyway because I've already started the process of freehand writing. So that's just a small example, but it doesn't matter what you're doing, just add stress to it and you'll guaranteed that you will get better at doing a thing. So that was point number one. Point number two is what we call mental contrasting. So we plan for obstacles, not just for success. When champions like, let's just say, Simone Biles use mental contrasting with implementation intentions, visualizing goals and obstacles, then creating if then responses. Apply this to career pivots, financial planning, or health goals. Entrepreneurs tend to do these things we call wargaming. And what they're doing is they're planning for potential failures or loopholes so that they can already have a solution to the problem when it comes to bear. So, as it pertains to mental contrasting or wargaming, if you will, I want to kind of put this out there. What's your if then plan for your biggest upcoming challenge? Now, this might be something that you need to think a little bit about, bro. So, I'm gonna kind of keep
Nope,
talking. Nope, you good? Okay.
already got it.
Hands off
Already
the wheel.
got it.
Hands
Yeah.
off the steering wheel. Go
But
ahead.
I am going backwards. I'm going back to the marathon, right? But I wrote down variables. Because I peeked at this question. Variables. I remember when I was in the military and I was teaching ROTC. One of the things that we did, we taught the cadets to do was that once they get their op order and they're briefing their platoon or their squad or whatever, um, and they're going out on mission, one of the things you do is you come up with variables, you come up with what ifs. If we get attacked, this is what we do. If we get gassed, this is what we do. If we get sniper attacked, this is what we do. So while we were doing that, we came up with variables or what ifs. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the marathon. 2 years ago, last year when I was 48, I said that before I turn 50, I'm going to do a marathon, right? So my what ifs were this. What if I get hurt? What if something comes up? What if it's too cold? What if I decide that mentally I break down and I'm just over it and I don't want to do it anymore? So what I did was I gave myself to 50. I put it on the schedule to do it last year. If it don't happen, if something happens, I have a buffer in there that I got another year to do it. So that would give me all of 2025 until December to complete that marathon. So my big what if that I had last year is, if I do not complete this marathon right now, then I have an alternate plan that I have another year built in there just in case something else happens that knocks me off of my game to where I'm not able to complete it.
That's good. That is really good. And thank you for sharing that. I think when it comes down to like your if then plan, it's almost like having a plan of action or plan of attack. And I like the fact that you brought in, military briefings and things of that nature because it kind of helps us to plan for contingencies. In project management, we do what is called project risk management. And so I think what we have to consider is that challenges, upcoming challenges, they present one of two things. It presents something that has the potential to derail the plan or something that can actually accelerate the plan. So just because something presents itself as a challenge does not necessarily mean it will always derail your plan. I give you a perfect example. You can go to school and you be in school for 4 years to get your undergraduate degree, and then you spend another 2.5, maybe 3 years to get your graduate degree. And then in your mind, after getting this MBA, I'm going to do this. But now they have these things called certifications. And so, what if, say, for example, and I'm using MBA, and I don't know if they have any, I think they have certification for MBA, I'm not sure. But what if the thing that you're looking to do, what if there's a certification to do that and you can still get the degree later after getting the job, or things of that nature? I'm only using this as an example, right? I think understanding the decision that I'm going to make if something presents itself is key because that means I'm not now bogged down with the idea or the notion of trying to figure out which is the right way to go. I've already considered that. I've already thought about this. I've already thought about that. What happens if, say, for example, I want to be a project manager, whatever, and there's another opportunity that presents itself. So I'm giving the other side of it. What if another opportunity to present itself, even though I was shooting for a project manager, but I got offered a job as a project coordinator, right? That's still kind of within the same field. So when we look at these things, going through the wargaming in your mind, I'm not talking about the wargaming that we used to play. I'm mad at Garfield, and me and Garfield about to have a heated conversation. And if he say this, then I'm gonna say that. Right? That is a form of war gaming, but don't do that. Don't do that. Right? You're war gaming an argument. We ain't talking about that. We want to war game something that has the potential to be positive. Okay. So war game what your plans are within, because we talk about goal setting all the time. In order to hit this milestone, you know, this is what needs to happen. But what if one of the variables within that is missing? Then do I have enough for this to still happen? That's kind of like what you have to go through. You have to go through the mental analysis on your particular path to consider if this happens, then this is what I'm going to do. But what if you plan to do a thing and the if never showed up? Would doing the thing increase the odds of success? Maybe. That's something that you have to consider in there. So I think this idea of mental contrasting is key because it forces you to think, and I know we like to say positive, 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 but it forces you to think like, what if something negative were to happen? What if something was to happen that I don't want to happen? Can I now come up with a solution for said thing before it actually happens? So that's why I love this aspect of it.
I think if you have life insurance, then you've already had this conversation in your head or with a significant other. If I die, then this is what is left over for whoever is left behind. So this is something that we probably use on a daily day basis or on a in our in our life in general. We're always doing it. And I think sometimes we are more intentional about it than other times. I think certain times we're more, like I said, it's like, we'll go for a job, like, man, well, if I don't get the job, then, I guess I'll go over here and work. I'll start my business, and if it don't work out, then I'll go back to the army. So we if then all the time. I think that it would be in our best interest sometimes, especially when it comes to big things that we really do, that we do a lot of if thenning. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because, like, just say something like life insurance. What if you get bad information about life insurance? And you're like, well, if then, it's all right. So if I died and this is what I'm leaving behind, but
Right.
you get the wrong one, or you get um term when you should have got something different, or whatever, or you decide to invest over here when you should have invested over there. So the if then a lot of times, and even honestly sometimes, if thenning with other people in that space can help you out as well. So
Absolutely.
sometimes, when you run things by somebody, say, hey coach, man, if I do this, if I invest in this, you was telling me about some S&P 500 stuff that you been dabbling to, and some of this, if I do this, what is it going to look like? So I think there's nothing wrong with sometimes running things by a reliable source, when you if then too, because like I said, when we was doing with the soldiers, there were some of the things that they did. They say,
Absolutely.
okay, hey, if we do this, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, man. I do love that. And I think you're right. I think in some small degree we do it,
mhm.
but I am reluctant to say, even though I feel I am going to say, I think we do if then out of, okay, here it is. We do a lot of times we do if then out of necessity. In essence, we do it, and I'm not taking away from what you're saying because I think you're spot on. We do if then when it comes down to a need. We do if
Mhm.
then when it comes down to survival, things of that nature. But we don't if then at a higher level that we should be doing that. We don't if then for goal planning. We don't if then for legacy planning and things of that nature. Even though insurance can fall in the realm of legacy planning, but what about if I if then my the next three generations of my family? You know what I'm saying? Would that not necessarily get after what we're trying to achieve as senior men? Like I think this is an awesome technique that we can actually use moving forward.
Yeah, I think people, when they do that, they just say, well, I ain't worried about it right now. I ain't focused on that right now in my
Yeah,
life. I
yeah,
ain't worried about it. It's like, well, hey, you should maybe try and take care of your health, or, you know, that was last week's episode, by the way. Go back and watch that. Um but they'll say, I ain't worried about losing no weight right now. If I get diabetes, if I get type 2, then I'll worry about it then. I'll quit cigarettes, if I get cancer. Until then, I'll worry about it then. I'll worry about it when it happens.
yeah,
I've heard that so much in my lifetime. I will worry about it when it happens, and I think that works totally against the if then principle.
yeah. Not a good strategy. Not a good
Not
strategy.
a good strategy.
Speaking of strategy,
I'm just living for the day.
I know, right?
Tomorrow ain't promised. I
Speaking
get
of
it.
strategy, the next one is strategic quitting, the art of prioritizing like a pro. Now, athletes again like Serena Williams skip
Bro, did you
good
say strategic quitting?
strategic quitting, strategic quitting.
I ain't
So
never heard it put that way, but I
it's
could, yeah.
yep, yeah, man.
Mm.
Athletes like Serena Williams skip good opportunities to focus on great ones. Use opportunity cost analysis to cut draining commitments and double down on high impact goals. I think the notion here is for us to understand that quitting isn't failure, it's redirecting energy to what truly matters. And so I think there was an article I read a while back where Warren Buffett's he has like what is called a two-list strategy. So he focused like if I remember correctly, focus on five priorities and avoid the other 20 at all costs within his list. And I can't remember the details that go along with it, but it's all about ensuring that we don't necessarily devote time and energy and effort to something that's not that's not designed to move the needle positively in our favor, number one, or number two, eliminate some of the things that we are doing for the sake of the things that we said that we're going to do or we're destined to do. So that would be the notion of strategic quitting. Strategically quitting these things over here so I can focus my energy on these things right here. And so that kind of brings me to this particular question. What could you achieve if you reallocate 10% of your time to your top priority? And if you don't mind, I'm gonna tackle this one first.
Handle
The
it. Hey, before
first,
you do,
yeah.
um, I thought about. Let me know if this is on point with this. I thought about this when you talked about strategic quitting,
Hmm.
right? You remember in basic training, and we would have the guys at the back of the formation, right? They'd be broke. We call them broke
Hmm.
things,
Hmm.
right? They be back. You know, some of these dudes wasn't really that hurt. They have some shin splint. They have some stuff going on. There was some legitimacy back there, but some of the dudes were just scared. They just decided, you know what? I joined the army. I done been off way more than I can chew. So, and what happens if they go to sick call and the doctors will say, you know what, private, you know what, you got shin splints or something like that. So if you want to get out, you know what, you can get out. We can out process you, right?
Yeah.
Um, is that strategic quitting? Like they know they really not hurt. They got a little shin splints, but they milking it because they really don't want to own up to the fact that they're quitting, right? So what they do is they place themselves in a situation to allow someone else to diagnose them away to whereas it gives them an out versus them having to say that I'm out. You know,
Yeah.
kind of like people do in relationships, they try to be bad so the other person to break up with them. But
Mhm.
yeah, in this situation, what do you think?
No.
Is it so
No, no,
is
no,
that so the soldier ain't that ain't strategic quitting?
no, that's not strategic
Okay,
quitting.
okay,
That's them finding a reason, based upon how they're currently feeling.
okay.
And so they're gonna ride that wave all the way to somebody gives them the out that they're looking for. But in this
Right.
particular essence, um, again, it's just reallocating my energy into the thing that I really need to do, as
Mhm.
opposed to spreading myself so thin to where nothing is getting the majority of my attention or majority of the effort that I have. So, in the case of this, what could you achieve if you reallocate 10% of your time to your top priority? I believe the first thing the first thing that I would achieve is clarity, because I'm not worried about, oh, I got to do this by this time, or I got to have this done for this, and so forth and so on. So I get to achieve what is known as mental clarity. And in mental clarity, I get this thing called focus. So my ability to focus just that additional 10% on my number one priority means that I get to give my number one priority more thought energy, more of my own physical energy in the course of moving forward and developing it. So that's kind of like where I will start with this, because I think this is a very important thing. And I think we don't do this enough. I think what we do a lot of times is we do a lot of things. So we appear to be busy. So we're doing these things to give the impression that we are busy. And if you know the word busy, it is the beginning of business, right? So we have this busyness that goes on with us so that we look like we're in business. But in all actuality, there is no results that is being produced to show that we're in business. But if I remove some of these things that I'm doing, these things that are preventing me to focus on the thing that I said I really and truly want to do, if I can focus myself there a lot more than what I'm doing, then I might find that my top priority isn't as difficult as I thought it was. It only appears to be difficult because I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of energy. I don't have a lot of focus when it comes down to that one thing that I'm trying to do.
Um, since we're talking about mastering, um, I want to keep it on the direction, but I also want to talk about this part of is that what if your top priority is not what you should be focusing on, right? So if your top priority, if you're an athlete and your top priority is your your training, right? Your top 10, so you take an extra 10% and you are working on training, working out, your agility drills, your stretching, your all things when it comes to your physical body to be a better athlete or to be better physically, right? But what if during that time you realize that while you focused on that top 10%, that there's a meet or something like that, and you realize that, hey, you know what, maybe I should have been focusing more on my eating or more so on my mental health, because physically I was there, but mentally when I got to the starting line I had jitters, I was nervous, so I think that whatever you focus on, if you take that 10% and you pay attention and really focus on, like you talked about that mental clarity, I think it could be a very good thing. I think that whatever you do with this 10%, it has to be of productive value, have to be productive in nature, because the last thing you want to do is, your top priority is mental health, right? So what you do is you take an extra 10% of your day and then you spend it on the toilet scrolling TikTok videos, right? So you're not, we just talked about that a couple Fridays ago, about your time and social media and different things like that over on Empowering Perspective podcast. So go back and check that out. But yeah, I think that it's important that when you reallocate this 10%, if you was to do that, that it has to be productive 10%. It has to be adding value to whatever it is you're doing. If not, you may end up just wasting your time. So you need to focus and think about maybe even doing the if then plan, the if then phase. Think about, what do I need to be focusing my top 10% on, because I focus on the top 10%, maybe these are some of the results that I should see from focusing on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you guys are listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, like, this particular question like this, like, what could you achieve if you reallocate 10% of your time to your top priority? Because here's what I know. I don't care who you are 10%, at least at a minimum. There's time that you are wasting in consuming doing other stuff, to where if you just shave 10% of that, then you could reallocate that time to your thing. And like you
Yeah.
said, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Facebook, whatever, I think when we really, because your phone has it, at the end of the week, it'll tell you how much screen time you have. And if I'm not mistaken, it even breaks down like where you allocated that time in your screen time. What if I spent 10% less time on TikTok,
Hmm.
10% less time on just social media in general, and then allocated that time to being more productive, like the consistency coach just said? I think you'll start noticing a difference over time. So, you know, just want to make
Yeah,
sure that
man. Yeah, I'm looking at like look at Coach's Corner, right? So say for instance, for this piece of the conversation, my top priority in my life right now is Coach's Corner, right? So what am I going to do with this 10%? Should I spend it coming up with a bunch of show topics and the show notes for it? Should I focus on editing videos? Should I focus on making shorts? Should I focus on putting the videos on Instagram? Like, that's why it's important, like with the what ifs, and the other thing with your whole plan is to figure out, it's really important to figure out what you're going to do with that 10%, because it needs to be productive. Because like I said, I could go through there and spend the extra 10% coming up with names for the show, and now I got show names for the next 2 years. But you know what I mean? Do I really need to put the emphasis on show notes all the way through 2029? Could that energy be focused on something else? So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think that's a good segue to go into our next point, which is neural priming. Hack your pregame rituals for life. Now, I really
mhm.
like this one, because you guys know how I am. And neural priming is all about, like, purpose and recovery, if we think about it. So athletes use triggers such as music's scent and breath work to enter into what is called a flow state before events. So borrow this for high stake meetings, creative work, or tough conversations. Peak performance isn't random, it's a state you can engineer with rituals. And I think one of I think his name Djokovic. Djokovic uses like a 90-second breath work. He used it to reset between tennis points, which is a key point. So when it comes down to it, how might a 2-minute reset transform your next stressful moment? Just
Yeah.
I want that one to be rhetorical. I want everybody to consider that. How might a 2-minute reset transform your next stressful moment? And then for us, I want us to do this. What daily ritual could prime your brain for focus or calm?
Now I'm gonna be honest, and this is kind of with the other one too. Most of the time before the show, and I know sometimes y'all see it every once in a while. Like I'm behind the stage and I'm getting hype. I'm listening to music or I'm listening to something motivational or something like that, just to kind of get me hype. You know what I mean? Do I need it? No, but I do at the. I don't need it. However, I can come show ready without it. However, sometimes when I have that, I know that there are certain things that get me excited and get me pumped up and different things like that. So a simple daily ritual would be to do something that gets you pumped up and get you excited before you do something. You know, I know people who get up at the butt crack of dawn, and by the time they get to work, they've already had an entire day, right? They've worked out, they spent time with their spouse, they've ate a good, well balanced breakfast. You know what I mean? They may have prayed and meditated and done all of these things before they get to work. So by the time they get to work, they're already ready for the day, you know? So I think that having some moment or some time in the day, you know, that you spend with yourself, focusing or calming down or to getting at a space in your mind to where you can be productive, I think it's great. For some
Yeah.
people it's getting hype, it's listening to music, it's listening to podcasts. For some people it's meditation, it's quiet, it's a dark room. So whatever it is that floats your boat, I think either one of those are good places to go to calm you down, because some people need that music to
Mhm.
kind of break up all of the stuff they got going on, and to kind of that actually calms them down. You know what I'm saying? It may look like this, but it's really focus, it's calm, it's all of those other things. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I like that.
I'm with you. You. You was amped. Yeah, you was amped up for that one, bro.
Yeah, I like
Um,
that one.
yeah, me too. And I do. You know, I tend to do the same thing. See, the difference between me and him, he'll have his microphone muted. I won't. So whatever I'm listening to, they listening to
Yeah.
as well. And it's just a thing. It's a thing that I do. And I want to kind of share a little technique because I know you're hearing these steps, but one thing you got to realize is that even with neural priming, you probably or should be doing one of the previous steps. You should be considering like mental contrasting. You should be probably in your mind doing if then. So if I'm, listening, I'm getting myself prepared for a show, and I'm got my music playing in the background, and I'm considering like what the questions we're going to ask. Well, if the Uncle Junior, if the Uncle Junior, the consistency coach, if he says this, then I'm gonna say this right here, right? Because now I'm starting to get into the flow of the show. And that's what neuropriming is all about. You want to get into the flow of the thing that you're getting ready to do. And sometimes you may need to do some you may need to do some mental contrasting to consider what's going to happen. So you may have a response, or yeah, that's it. Have a response for any potential contingencies, but it's not just for contingencies. It's also for like segues that can help you expedite where you're trying to get to. And if you guys seen the a couple of weeks ago, reframing the image of relationship, like I was literally doing that, like in between. Like not only did I do it in the beginning of the show before the show started, but during the show there were times where I had to start humming the same song that I was listening to prior to, just to consider the if then in the moment, because it kind of helps to be flexible in conversation. So this is a huge, and I'm gonna show it again so everybody get it. Neural priming, hack your pre-game rituals for life. And again, if you consider like neural priming and how you're going to do a thing, that kind of gets the ball rolling, and that's where you want to be at. All right, time is getting away from us, man. So we got to get moving here. Number five, last one, skill stacking. Multiply your impact like a champion. Now, skill stacking, I think, is huge, and I think a lot of people actually do this, right? And this is all about auto regulation as well. So athletes stack complementary skills, agility plus decision making, things of that nature, and they do it to dominate. Likewise, pairing a hard skill, coding, for an example, with a soft skill, storytelling, can revolutionize your career. And so the key here is mastery isn't about one strength. It's about combinations that make you unstoppable. This is the uniqueness of you that you're trying to exploit. And so that being said, I want to kind of put this question out here real quick and maybe get into some true false or scenario or a combination of both. How might pairing learning with rest, auto regulation, um, how might pairing learning with rest boost your growth?
Um, I don't know, but here's what I do know. I remember in the military as an air traffic controller, we had work rest cycles. You could work for a certain amount of time, but you had to be off for a certain amount of time. Someone figured out that air traffic controllers don't need to be working more than 10 hours at a time because of the cognitive breakdown in the brain and the sleep deprivedness and all of the other things that may go to and towards that, to whereas that someone who's working more than these set amount of hours is more likely to have an accident or to cause something to happen, right? I remember when in the military, we would have classes and we would have a 50-10 work to rest cycle in the classes. So we're in the class and coach is up there on the platform and he's telling us about burn and he's giving us the knife chop and when it comes time for something for the test, he's stomping his foot. So we all know to pay attention to this, right? But um at the end of the 50 minutes, there was a break. There was a brain relaxation. So the brain can do whatever it is that it needs to do. So for me, just based off of those things that I've learned, I don't know the ins and outs of it and why, but I do know that some people have figured that out. That is something that I do when I work out and I'm doing certain parts. One of the best types of workouts you can do is a hit workout, right? High intensity training. And that is when you get your heart rate up real fast to a certain level and then you rest. That is one of these best ones you can do. And it works on a work hard for a certain amount of time and then rest. Work hard and rest. So I think that learning with rest works well too. I know sometimes my last little one, I'd be on this computer for a long time and I need to get off. At the end of the day, I'm just like, it's a lot going on just from spending time looking and the mental fatigue and it's on your eyes and all of the other different things. So I definitely know that there's something in there. And I can definitely see that there's a lot of people way before me that have done a lot of information and learning and about research on this subject. So I just know it works. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it worked. Right. So that's how parent learning and rest boosts your growth. It works and it's going to take it to a better level.
Yeah, I agree. I used to hate. Well, I can't say I used to hate. I used to like it because well, high intensity interval training. I used to like it because it reminded me of football drills. So when we started doing it in the army, I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. So yeah, I agree. Um, you are a how can I say it? You are an intellectual being. That's what you are. You are always collecting data. That's what your senses are. When you start considering your five senses are constantly extracting information from the environment. You, on the other hand, get to determine the environment that you start extracting information. Well, if you're extracting intelligence data, that intelligence data must be analyzed. So if you're analyzing that intelligence data, you're analyzing it for the sake of something, which means that you are a learning being. If you are constantly in a space of learning, you need to rest so that you process this information and then it turns itself over and then it starts to make sense. This is why sometimes you can be relaxing and then you get this bright idea. Where did the bright idea came from? I don't know. Sure you did. It came from all of the information that you've collected all the way up to that point. And then you thought long enough about a thing and then you decided to rest. And then when you decided to rest, the information now turned over and became something. Like, wait, I need to do this. Then you jump up and go run and get behind the computer, or you pull out a pen and write it down, or whatever the case may be. I think when we look at skill stacking, right? The ability to do a thing, whether we're talking learning and resting, whether we're talking, I don't know, coding and public speaking, whether we're talking fitness, right, and public speaking, whether we're talking, I don't know, name it. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Whether you're talking project management and consulting, when you start skill stacking, whoever you are, go from here to here because your value is not now focused only in one thing. I know for years people were saying, well, if you're going to start a business, you got to find a niche. What is your niche? What is your niche? And that's what people want to focus in because what they're trying to tell you is that you got to become a master of something. However, comma, I believe that great information has also handicapped a lot of people because people stay so focused in their niche that they have not necessarily broadened their horizon to such a degree that they become, how can I say it, that they literally work themselves into a position to where the signs of the time can move them and make them obsolete. Go back in time and remember when, factory was like the thing. We was the manufacturing era, right? Manufacturing was huge, but then they came out with this thing called Lean Six Sigma. And Lean Six Sigma was the thing that all managers and leaders needed for their organization. Why? Because Lean Six Sigma was all about the amount of things that you can produce minus deficiencies. So the more deficiencies we can root out, the more productivity we can have. And it's not only just productivity, it's all about the bottom line. But then when the era changed, Lean Six Sigma went from here to like, not so much. So for me to tell you that I'm a green belt or a black belt really don't mean nothing unless I'm talking about karate. That's just what it is these days. So you have to figure out a way. It doesn't matter what your profession is. You have to figure out a way, like say, like what else can I do to highly market myself, to make myself unstoppable. That's the thing. That's what skill stacking is all about. Because literally, if you find a way to skill to stack, you can go from making 5 figures a year to 6 figures a year, and sometimes even more. That's what skill stacking is. So ramble on and on about that, bro. I do apologize. But I think these 5 things, these 5 science-backed strategies will help each and every last person. And I want to kind of put them out there again so that they can actually take a look at them. Number one, anti-fragility training, right? Number two, mental contrasting. Number three, strategic quitting. Number four, neural priming. And then number five is skill stacking. Because if you start to practice these things, I think you'll start to see a difference and you'll start noticing things change.
I
Okay.
agree, man. I agree, man. No, I like skill stacking.
Yeah, man.
I
Okay.
remember it remind me of supersetting a little bit in the gym.
Yep.
You're working on two exercises at the same time, kind of
Mhm.
conserve and save time, and also, get a little bit different. So,
Yep. I remember that as well.
hmm
So I kind of want to like pull one of each for the sake of time.
okay.
And I'm gonna start off with the scenario first. John feels overwhelmed balancing work, family, and a fitness goal. He believes quitting anything is weak. What should he do instead?
Quit everything, instead of anything. Give it up, John. No, I do believe that John needs to revisit some things. John needs to go deep. John needs to go somewhere, sit down, and think about what balance is. What does it look like to really have balance? You don't have to eliminate any of these things. You can keep going and you can push through it. You can work, you can have family, and you can have all fitness goals. You can do all of these things if you spend some time um trying to figure out what that looks like and healthy balance with doing all of these different things. You may while you're thinking about all of this, may see that one thing you may have to give less of a priority to. You know, you may have to put the fitness goal as a lesser of a priority. I don't know. I don't recommend it, but I don't know John's overall balance with work, family, and different things like this. John may be somebody who's working 15 or 16 hours a day, you know? So I would tell him he may have to adjust his fitness goal. He may have to get it in during the daytime or something like that to make sure he has time with his family, or he need to work out with his family or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not weak. But I think in what he should do is to figure out how he can create a balance and be able to have all of these different things in his life and not necessarily have to quit anything. He just needs to figure out how he can do it.
Yeah. I agree. I think the first thing that John needs to do is to realize that balance isn't equality.
Hmm.
Um, and I like what you said. This also has to do with the stage of life that they're in. If they're in their younger 20s, um, then I don't disagree with work, family, and fitness goal being priorities. You just got to figure out how family can be a part of all of it. Like
Hmm.
family should be the priority, but a lot of times when you're 20, it's not. It's making sure that I, get this promotion at work and I stay in shape and all that other great stuff. But family should be a functional part of fitness goals, and they should be a functional part of my work as well. And I know sometimes that's kind of hard to imagine, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna take a page out your book. If your spouse is a stay-at-home spouse, then do you eat lunch with your spouse on a daily basis? Like, do you make that time? Is that possible? Because again, if you live in a big city, it may not. So I think you're right when you look at this. Like, I don't think you have to quit anything in this regard. I think you just need to better figure out what balance looks like. I got one more real quick, and then I get about one or two true false in there. Maya wants to start a side business, but keeps putting it off, thinking, "What if I fail?" She spends hours visualizing success but hasn't created a plan. What critical strategy is she missing?
What critical strategy? Let me go look at these things. Um, what's the first one?
The first one is anti-fragility.
Anti-fragility training, mental procrastination. Mm, I think it would probably be the mental contrasting plan for obstacles, not just success. So for number two, that's what I'm looking at. Um, she needs to come up with a contingency plan. She needs to
Mhm.
come up with a what if. You know, like she needs to come up with a variable, like we was talking about earlier. Like, okay, what if you do fail? Have a contingency plan. If I fail, this is what I'm going to do. So that way, at least it gives you the freedom and it gives you the okay to go out there and do it because you've already given yourself the okay to fail. There's nothing wrong with failing. Everybody who is here listening to the sound of my voice has failed in something, and we are still here. It is part of normal life. So, yeah, that's what she needs to do. And for sake of time, I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm with you. I am with you 100%. I will say it like this, though. I would say mental contrasting is definitely the right answer, but I wouldn't say accept failing as an option right now. She has to make a mental shift because remember, she keeps putting it off thinking, "What if I fail?"
Yeah.
So every time, because the only thing she is seeing is success. And because the only thing she is seeing is success, the contrast of success is failing. Therefore, she doesn't want to fail. So she's putting it off.
Hmm.
But, you're asking yourself, what if I fail? Why not ask yourself, what if I succeed? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you going to contrast the idea that you're thinking that keeps you from doing absolutely nothing? What if I fail? Well, what happens if I succeed?
Hmm.
What if this happens? Well, what if this happens? Right. So that's what mental contrasting is all about. And I think as we're listening to this and as people are listening to this, somebody just got a revelation in listening to all of this as well, because they were Maya. They kept saying, "What if I fail?" And because what if I fail is the constant prolonged thought, it moves them to paralysis. But why not change that? Why not come up with something? What if I succeed? So I like that. So real quick, one true false question. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Catch a tiger by the toe.
True or
Don't
false?
holler, let him go.
Visualizing success alone is sufficient to achieve your goals.
False.
Definitely false.
That's what Maya just did. She
That's
just
exactly.
visualized it. That was it.
That was it. That was it.
Man,
Uh,
if visualization was good enough, shoot, we all be seven-figure earners,
you know,
eight-figure earners.
generally at this point, I would tell you to say it with your chest, but ain't no need to do it.
Mhm.
But for the sake of time, listen, I want us to go ahead and get in our actionable thoughts. And y'all know it. Y'all know what's coming.
Blow me up. Hey man, so my actionable advice for the week is going to be very simple. Coach already did a good job of throwing out these 5 different science-backed strategies to master work, stress, and goals. So now, what my actionable advice would be is to start trying to implement these things. A lot of times we'll get great information and then we'll leave it until next time we see each other. A lot of times we'll go to church on Sunday and we'll read our Bible and then we'll put it in the back of the trunk and we won't see it again till next Sunday. So what I'm asking you to do this week is to not put this in the back of the trunk. Take it out, use it, apply it, go over it throughout the week. Go over these 5 different things and try to get a better understanding. See if you can apply some of these things to your life. And that's my actual advice for this week.
Man, listen, I'm gonna say it like this. I don't really think there's a lot more that you can add to this. Like my actionable advice, listen to this again. Listen to this at least once a week. Like do treat this video like you would treat a self-motivation guide. Listen to it once a week. And whether it's Monday morning on your way going to work, or whether it's midweek for that little bit of oomph that you need to get over. I don't really care how you do it. Just do it. Listen to this video multiple times because I mean, within the context of this video is a lot of great actionable advice. And that is my actionable advice. So, again, brother, I think, in my opinion, another great conversation.
Yeah, man. It was
I
great. Go ahead.
it, now I'm just saying I can't stress it enough. Like I think this was a great conversation. I think we did a pretty decent job of trying to articulate the differences in each science-backed strategy, comparing it to the athletic community, and just giving kind of like real world scenarios in relation to them.
Yeah.
So what more do you have for the people, sir?
Man, I don't have nothing else for him, man. I enjoyed everybody being here, chiming in the chat, being part of the conversation, supporting us every single week. We this is why we do it. We enjoy having these conversations. We enjoy hanging out with each other. We enjoy hanging out with everybody in the chat. So just always thankful for all the likes and the shares, and just always thankful for the support, because this is why we do it. We do it for ourselves. We enjoy doing it, but it's an added benefit having people watch you and support you each and every single week. So shout out to the chat and the listeners and viewers.
Absolutely, absolutely. I second that. I agree with that. Listen, on behalf of myself, the mindset coach, and on behalf of my good friend here, the consistency coach, you guys continue to be awesome. Continue to do what you do. Again, listen to this video multiple times. Let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we are